Good evening. I'd like to call the Administration and Public Works Committee meeting in order at 5:09 p.m. on Monday, February 29th. Can you please take the roll?
Councilmember Kelly. Here. Councilmember Harris.
Present.
Councilmember Nusma.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
You have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'd like to begin with the approval of minutes from February 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of our February 13th meeting.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Nusma.
Second.
And seconded by Councilmember Burns. Are we ready? Do we have any questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. All right, we'll move to public comment, and we'll begin with Charles Smith, since he's in person.
Good evening, good evening, members of AMPW. Just be brief. First of all, I want to say that I'd like to compliment Mr. Cummings, who is now engaged with our attorneys, and they are exchanging information. It seems to be going real well. I just want to let you know that. But I also want to just say that in I guess it was 1918, in 2018, I first started, actually 2017, first started working down at Harley Clark, and then the effort was just to clean up around the building, just so it looked decent, and that's when we were doing Save Harley Clark. We wanted to make the building just look like someplace that someone cared about, but that it kind of evolved into expanding out into the broader area around the grounds and getting rid of invasives, which has been happening for years and years actually down there, and cutting out unwanted trees and that kind of stuff. And of course that evolved into 2018, 2019 into buying trees and plants and preparing areas to plant those and kind of expanding those kinds of activities. And that evolved over the last few years into pretty significant clearing and planting starting in the spring. So I've already been kind of contacted by volunteers going, when do we start? And I have to tell them, well, it all depends. But it is kind of a strange feeling to be at this point, this time of the year, and not be ordering trees or planting or organizing. So I'm hoping that that things progress in a way that will allow those kinds of activities to start happening again down at the Jens Jensen Gardens and the Lighthouse Landing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And I should have begun. We have time for each person to speak, and it's 2 minutes. Mike Vasilko, are you on Zoom? Can you unmute yourself? And you have 2 minutes.
I can unmute myself.
Thank you.
2 questions. One is for the bills list. I'm just confused why there are references to bills from fiscal year 2022. It seems to be in the amount of about $650,000. I don't think it's a typo because it's repeated several times in several places. So if someone could just explain why we're paying February 28, 2022 bills in 2023. Second question is regarding the item A9, which is resolution 19R23. On page 25 of the attachment, on line 25, I should say, of the attachment, page 6 of 6, there's a reference to the animal shelter renovations for $2,360,000. This is part of the facilities summary for capital improvement plan projects that appear to be funded by bonds. It's called Exhibit A. So shouldn't that be updated because that's no longer the case? That's not going to be renovated for $2,360,000. And related to that, just quickly, I know it's not on APW's agenda, but it should be because it never really got out of the committee as far as I understood, which is the animal shelter bids and total project cost that was never brought back to APW the way it was supposed to be. And I think that's some kind of a rule break as far as I know, and now it appears as a special order of business for the city council at the next meeting. So item A1, somebody explain the fiscal year 2022 thing, and then
You have 5 seconds.
item A9, if somebody could just also explain why that $2,360,000 is shown on the facility summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sharon Fegan. Are you on the line? If you'd unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello? You've gone. We can't hear you. Something may have happened to the connection. We'll move forward and we'll try to come back. Well, we will come back. I'm sorry. Tricia Conley, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You have
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
Good evening, Tricia Conley, Second Ward. I'm responding to item D1, and I have a few questions that I hope you'll clarify this evening. If the mansion lease is what's quoted in the paperwork as superior to the Jens Jensen Gardens lease, does that mean that you would allow other uses other than the uses that Jens Jensen Gardens is committed to? So that's one question that I would love you to discuss tonight. Another thing is that the Jens Jensen Garden Group wants the grounds to be a public park. What if the mansion tenant wants something other than a public park? Does this mean that the city may change the use and zoning? That's going to be a big concern to the community. And would a future mansion tenant be required to restore the gardens and take care of the grounds, as was listed when Artist Bookhouse had the lease? So looking for a few clarifications there. And I just want to piggyback on Mike's comment about A9, the animal shelter. We need a lot of transparency here. This has been a moving target, and there's been recent changes as to cost. And I am looking for our elected leaders to be very fiscally responsible here on anything on this going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back to Sharon Fegan. Are you there?
Hi. Yeah.
Okay,
thank
sorry
you.
about that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. But anyway, I wanted to thank the staff for preparing the lease for the Jens Jensen garden. And, we look forward to working with everyone on negotiating a final version of that. Right now, our attorneys are marking it up, and we've already reviewed it and given the attorneys various comments, and we expect it'll be back to the city probably by the end of the week, and then we'll be ready to discuss it. So I really spoke today because I think until our comments are prepared, that we would recommend that you postpone the discussion today because it doesn't really make sense for the committee to discuss and without having the full picture of, of what we're interested in, what the city's interested in, and then figuring out how to get to something final. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is the end of public comment. I do have something that I'll say later that was sent to me sent to all of us via email. Next, we will move to consent agenda. Is there anything we wish to take off consent?
A9.
Okay. Anything else?
A3, please.
A3? Okay. A5, I'm going to pull A5. Anything else? Last call? No? Okay, so, go ahead.
If I may take off A8, I just want to get a bit of
Say it again.
A8.
A8. Okay. And Councilmember
And I'm going
Newsom?
to add A7, too.
All right. So let me repeat that back so I'm clear. We will be pulling off A3, A5, A7, A8, and A9.
Yes.
Okay.
I move the consent agenda minus those items.
I will second.
Okay. There has been a movement to approve consent agenda minus A3, A5, A7, A8, and A9. And it has, by Councilmember Reed, and it has been seconded by Councilmember Newsma. Is there any question? All those in favor, well, let's do roll call.
Councilmember Kelly. Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Consent agenda has been approved for 2, 4, 6, and that's it. Up for discussion, would someone like to move A3?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Burns and seconded by Councilmember Reed. The floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Burns?
Yeah, just so this doesn't become a long, drawn-out conversation. So we actually approved a part of this. We didn't approve the contract already, but we've approved 80 active working hours per month. That was a part of the original motion the day we passed the budget, as well as the dollar amount. Councilmember Nusma, which I'm sure he'll provide comment, has provided some concern in writing, which is nothing that can't be addressed. I wish I would have known sooner, because we could have worked something into the contract to address the concern that you provided, Deputy Manager Stonebank. I think quite simply, just so we can hone in on it, it's just trying to identify what the breach of contract cause is, which is a simple matter in contracts that could be addressed. Again, would have loved to know beforehand, but I've already reached out to Worksby. They're more than happy to talk about adding that language. There were some other concerns about whether or not we're stuck at 80 hours, and as I have communicated to staff, we can fluctuate down to 40 active working hours after 3 months if it's determined that we don't need 80 hours. 80 hours, though, it was determined we needed 80 hours based on about an hour-long discussion that Worksby had with the 5 council members who have decided to participate in this program. So it was not a number that was thrown out of thin air. It was a number that was recommended based on conversations with the 5 hour-long conversations about what was needed with the 5 council members who are to participate. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, to more explicitly state my concerns, the contract as it's written is not very fair to the city in that we have no off-ramp or right to terminate the contract for lack of performance by the contractor, which just as a general practice is probably not a good idea. We're on the hook for the full $67,000, whether or not they are performing up to our satisfaction. So that's my main concern. I'm on the fence whether or not this is, even with that issue corrected, if this is the best way to proceed, because I really do think that the best way to support council is to have some people on staff and in this building rather than remote. So that's the direction I want to head eventually, regardless of what happens with this contract.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yes, I would also second that. I think we should have an off-ramp. Can we hold this so that we can get that in? Also, is the 80,000 just for 5 members? Just
80
so I
hours.
understand. Is the 80 hours, sorry, is the 80 hours for 5 or for everybody, or how does that work?
Correct. It's a pool of 80 active working hours. That part we've already approved, plus the dollar amount. Active working hours, which means they're only paid when they're actively working on a task or assignment for council members. They work with other clients, and again, their recommendation, based on conversations with 5 council members, is that we would need about 80 active working hours a month.
I guess I'm just trying to understand. So this proposal of $68,000 would be to assist only part of the council?
No, as many as, it was the whole council, but I'm saying they interviewed 5 council members, and the ones that did not participate in those interviews, we kind of modeled activities that we thought the remaining council members would need based on the council members that did participate. So that's what they thought the full council would need, but they interviewed 5 council members.
I see. So this amount is based on the assumption that all 9 or 10 council members would use the services.
Correct. And at this point, I think at least 2 have decided that they won't participate. And then I think you said that you would participate, or at least.
I was waiting for them to circle back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would be interested. I do agree.
And
with
we can hold. Yeah, we can hold it. That's what I was saying. It's again, in contract terms, it's just a breach of contract. It's a simple thing that we can add. If I had more time, I would have called them sooner and worked it into the contract. I've already told them we'll hold it tonight and make sure that's in the final contract.
Are there other questions? Okay. Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, so I obviously support tabling this to get the contract updated. I do think all of us up here understand that we need assistance. I agree with Councilmember Nusma that there would be a benefit in the long term to having, in-house staff that are responsive both to the council members and the city manager and other staff members, similar to Allison. Maybe bolster Allison's team there. I think that would be most helpful. But I certainly hear Councilmember Burns that in the immediate, we can't wait another year without having some kind of assistance, and so it makes sense to pass this. So I will move to table this until our next meeting.
Hold on, I have 2 more questions.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Burns.
No, that was
from before.
I already addressed it in the back and forth.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, so just one last comment, and Councilmember Burns, I'm sorry, there's a lot in the city. It's hard to take care of having extra conversations and meetings on every item coming up, so I apologize. I personally would prefer to have either funds allocated to me to hire somebody that understands Evanston, understands my ward, or someone in-house who's really familiar, just for the record. That would be preferable to me, to Councilmember Reed's point, to bolster Allison's position, or again, to just allocate funds directly to hire someone that knows your ward, knows you, understands your policies and policy objectives. So, thank you.
Yeah, just Chair, if you would allow a response to that, or we can go with Reed
Let
first.
me do Councilmember Reed, then
flick my light on.
I'll allow you to table it. Go ahead,
Yes,
Councilmember Reed.
So just because I want to create the neural pathway here, I think we're going to need more than 1 employee. I think we should start thinking about that. I think just adding 1 more Allison wouldn't be the building the capacity I think we need as a council. So I'll say that. And then I will move to table this. Is 1 meeting acceptable, 2 meetings?
That's all we need.
I will move to table this until our next meeting.
All right, Councilmember Burns.
That's fine.
Is there a second?
Well, first,
Second, yeah.
okay.
Don't
So,
need to say anything else.
quit playing with the lights. Okay, so it has been moved to be tabled, and I don't think to March 13th.
I'll say one thing during discussion. We can discuss this, right, tables, yeah. So I'll say one quick thing under discussion. I second it.
Okay, so we're going to do voice vote for this one.
I will do some discussion real quick under discussion. I
Okay,
wanna
so
make
you
one
like
quick
to have,
comment.
okay, go
Just a
ahead.
quick comment. I did want to say, because I think people, when they hear virtual executive assistant, they think almost like a customer service team where every time we call, we're going to have a different person. This is going to be this will be 2 virtual executive assistants that work for the city of Evanston. And it's not like we will be cycling through different people. So in the same way that an in-person employee would need some time to learn Evanston and get caught up, a virtual executive assistant would be. But this is not an artificial intelligence assistant. This is a real human being that will be that will be assigned to the city of Evanston that will have to get acquainted with Evanston just like anyone else would. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's do a voice vote. All those in favor of tabling A3?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, A3 will be tabled until March 13th. Next, we move to A5, approval of contract with Bilderman Construction Company for the Arrington Lakefront Lagoon repairs.
I will move item A5.
I will second item A5, which is bid number 23-12.
Yes, thank you. Is there discussion? So I pulled this off because I just wanted to take note that there's a full waiver for the MWEBE, but I was, and that raised concerns for me as a council member and as a committee member. But when I asked about this full waiver, there were no companies, and it is Evanston-based? I thought it was Evanston-based. No, we don't have anything in Evanston that does this. Is that correct?
Nobody bid on the project from Evanston. I'm not sure whether an Evanston-based company could do it or not. But
Okay.
only this one bid was received.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Kelly, then Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, and I appreciate the questioning on this. Is there any particular way that we as a city make a point of ensuring that our local firms are aware of proposals so that we can better solicit participation from our local companies?
Hello, my name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So when staff is aware of a company existing that can do this work, we do send out a notice of advertisement to specific companies. And so if we were aware that there is a local business that can do that, we would have sent it to them. I know the next question is, were we aware? And I actually don't have that information handy, but I can look that up and let you know.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
I do know that the bids were shared with G.A. Johnson in Evanston, G.A. Johnson and Son Construction. So I believe that's the only Evanston firm that the city is currently aware of that would be able to perform this type of work, and they were sent notice about the project.
But they didn't respond.
They did not respond.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just thank you for saying that you do that. Councilmember Burns.
I wanted to just point out and to say thank you for staff for continuing to include the waiver disclosure as part of the agenda. That was something that the NWB requested, and our staff was happy to do, and I continue to see that, which is helpful because sometimes things get lost in those big packets. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. With that said, are there any other questions? Okay. It has been moved and properly seconded. Can we have we're so small, voice vote? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. Next, A7, approval of change order number 2 with Smith Group Incorporated for the Evanston Shoreline repairs RFQ 2145. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Nusma and seconded by Councilmember Reed. Are there questions? Councilmember Nusma.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify how this item on our ANPW agenda relates to the upcoming special order of business at City Council, and what would happen. Are we committing ourselves too early if we vote on it right now at ANPW?
Okay, my name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So this item is related to the special order of business for the ADA access to the dog beach. That is a discussion about, we've presented with a couple of options by our consultant on the council. We seek council direction on if they prefer one of those and if they want to proceed this year with it or budget it for next year. This would be the engineering design work. If we decide to proceed with it this year, we could award this. The schedule's really tight on this project. If we decide to construct it this year, it's going to be pretty difficult to meet it, and delaying the award of this engineering services would not be helpful in meeting the schedule. However, consent agenda is after the discussion, so even if you approve it now, you would still have the opportunity to vote against it or to hold it on when the consent agenda is reviewed at the end of the council meeting. Alternatively, you can just
So
vote to
we're
hold
not
it
voting
now.
on which design option to
No.
pursue at this point. That's SP2.
Yes.
All right, so we are just right now preliminarily pre-approving the design phase of this project pending the outcome of the discussion later at council.
Yes. However, you can also just choose to hold it at this meeting as well. And then that would automatically create a delay, which may be something that the city council desires for time to consider.
It makes sense to me to pass it out of committee right now, and we can have the whole conversation later at council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further conversation? Seeing none, I'd like for a voice vote for A7. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, A7 passes. Next is A8, Resolution 18R23, authorizing the city manager to submit an application for the shared STP grant fund for the Chicago Avenue Corridor Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved by Councilmember Reed, I'm sorry, and seconded by Councilmember Nusma. Are there questions? Councilmember Reed.
Yes, I have a question, or really a question statement for staff. I know Sat's here, Laura, whoever wants to take it. This council allocated $100,000 to an art park, to create an art park in the 8th Ward, which is at kind of the tail end of where this project will be. I've had folks at ward meetings discuss this. So to hone in on my point, I want to make sure that as a part of this, I know we're just approving the grant here, but I don't know if we're submitting any specific plans to, whatever the agency is that would be giving us the grant funds. I think important in this would be to create good pedestrian infrastructure connecting where the Mulford Viaduct Bridge is to the other side of the street where the storage facility is, creating a crosswalk there. One, folks use that as a crosswalk naturally already, but it would be really, I think, particularly if we add some infrastructure there and invest in our park, it would be really important to add that crosswalk there. And so I just want to make sure that either that is a part of it already or that it could be a part of it.
Good evening. Sat Nagar, Senior Project Manager. Yeah, we have a concept to connect Mulford to the other side with a crosswalk. It's in the plans that have been attached to the grant application request.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to be sure of that. Thank you very much, then. And then certainly, I have not reviewed the full plan that you're submitting to for the SDP grant, but is there an opportunity to make maybe small amendments to that after we've submitted it and if they approve us?
Absolutely. This is only a concept.
Yes.
We are going to finalize and formalize as a part of the phase 2 construction plans, and we'll be meeting with all the aldermen, see what they want to be incorporated in the final plans.
Well, I certainly would be happy to have you two at a ward meeting in the near future to discuss this.
Sure.
Thank
you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, voice vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, this passes. Next, A9, Resolution 19R23, authorizing payments related to the FY 2023 Capital Improvement Plan, CIP, project be reimbursed by the subsequent 2023 general obligation bond issuance. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Nusma and seconded by Councilmember Reed. Are there questions? Councilmember Reed.
Yes. Can I, Laura, is this you? Busy night for you? Or is this someone else?
Myself or Tash, but I can try to.
Yeah.
Attention behind.
Oh, yeah, Tash might, yeah.
It's cold in here.
Thank you, Director Desai. Can we start off with just you explaining for all of us a bit about this, and then I have a couple questions.
Okay. Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. It is Desai, Chief Financial Officer. So the purpose of this reimbursement resolution is that we can just go back, because generally we issue the bonds in late summer or the fall. But the projects, obviously, if once approved by the City Council as a part of the budget, we keep on awarding in January, February, March. So this is just the reimbursing the city while using currently right now our own funds. And if and when the City Council approves the bond, we can reimburse out of that bond proceeds. With that being said, I'll just stress on this is not an authorization to issue the bonds by the council.
Okay, I see a question by Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you?
No, you're
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Okay, and then why, I know that certainly last year, and I believe it's still in place, we had a $15 million line of credit with Byline Bank,
It's
correct?
still there, yes, sir.
So, can you explain why this, what you're asking for here, couldn't be something that we could tap into that line of credit for?
So the line of credit is obviously carries the higher rate of interest. It varies. Fed is expected to raise I think the rates maybe a couple of times more, and obviously it's tied to that. So generally it's a lot higher. And this is where I think we are going to have a discussion. We just had a question about this, that can the council talk about it after the kind of detailed discussion at the finance and budget, once the market stabilizes. But that is the downside of the line of credit. The good thing of the line of credit is, yes, you pay the interest on when you use it and the amount you use it. The downside is it's always kind of tied into those, it's a variable rate. So in a long term, you cannot use the line of credit where, like bonds, which you get the stable rate for the next 20 years. But we are keeping, I think, based on a discussion at the finance and budget, that it should be part of our financial planning. So I intend to keep that line open.
Yeah, so I hear you in the long term, the issues about using a line of credit, but this, from what I just heard you explain, is more of a short term.
No, we are talking about here the reimbursement resolution out of the bond fund, so which would be a long-term thing. Okay. And again, the purpose of reimbursement resolution is what? Like if the projects are already funded, the projects are approved to be funded out of GO bonds, and the departments like the Public Works and others, they are moving forward with the things. Right now, we are going to use our own money. If the council approves the bond, I will come up with the bond ordinance for the approval. If the council is okay with that, we can reimburse that because there's always a gap. Now, if we don't do the reimbursement resolution now and say in June, July, City Council says, yeah, go ahead and issue the $10 million bond, whatever the money has been spent before that, we cannot reimburse out of the bond proceeds. So this is the whole purpose of reimbursement resolution, is to have that kind of money be out of that bond proceeds. That's the whole purpose of this resolution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And 2 questions to wrap up here. One, do you feel that this is something that needs to be approved tonight, or is this something that we could take a couple weeks to ponder and think about?
Absolutely, and I think we answered that, Lara and I, that yes, Finance and Budget Committee is on, I think, March 14th. So even we can, council can act on it on March 27th meeting. And obviously, I would add this as a discussion item at the Finance and Budget.
So with that in mind, and to hopefully cut discussion short on this, with all of that, I'm going to move to refer this to Finance and Budget for further discussion, and then we can bring it back on the 27th.
Absolutely.
And I'll second that.
So it has been moved and seconded to present this back to Finance and Budget. Let's do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
With a vote of 5-0, it will be sent back to Finance and Budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move to items for discussion.
I will move item D1, discussion of the draft lease between the City of Evanston and Jen Jensen Gardens in Evanston.
Is there a second?
Is there a second to our discussion item that's on the agenda?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so as a chair, I have a statement to read, and we won't really have discussion because we are at negotiation phase, and I will read the statement from the Jens Jensen's lawyer group. Upon initial review of the city's draft, there are several substantive areas where the city and Jens Jensen's Garden Evanston diverge. JJGE is in the process of providing a redraft to the city, which we expect to deliver by close of business on Friday, February 24th. However, given the substantive issues, an all-hands legal call will likely be necessary to finalize the lease. Given the issues in the lease and JJGE not having time to submit a meaningful redraft to the city in advance of Monday's agenda, we respectfully request that the city include this email in its submission of the lease to the AMPW for AMPW visibility and awareness of the ongoing lease negotiations and future revisions to the lease as currently presented. TJ Kuban, and it's the legal firm. So at this time, we really don't have discussion as this is still in works. Are there any questions about that? Oh, Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, I do want to, I know we're still in negotiation, but I do want to make sure Nick has, and legal have what they need here to get this done. And I haven't spoken with everyone, but I do wonder if it would be helpful for all of us if potentially there were two leases here or some kind of bifurcation, maybe in one lease, but I think most appropriately in two, where there'd be one lease for the grounds and one set of conditions for the grounds and another lease for the coach house and greenhouse itself, because there may be value in not having a 40-year lease for the coach house and the greenhouse. And so I wonder if that can help us move this along. And I guess, so certainly want to hear whatever you want to say there, but also I guess, do you feel that you have the direction that you need from this body to go forth and negotiate whatever you need to negotiate?
Yes, good evening, members of the Administration and Public Works Committee, Nicholas Cummings, Corporation Counsel. To Councilmember Reed's first point, my understanding as the current lease is drafted and from discussions with Jens Jensen previously is the main capital project involved in this is the restoration of the coach house and the greenhouse. So to have sort of two separate leases for the grounds and the coach house and the greenhouse, I'm not sure that accomplishes the tenant's proposed goal. And that's the primary reason why they want such a long lease, is my understanding. And I could be wrong, but
I spoke with the president of the group. I hear what you're saying, and I think there are some concerns, but I also speaking with my colleagues, So I just want to make sure that you have what you need, that if that is an eventual outcome, that we don't have to schedule another meeting for you to get direction for us.
And secondly, I've been in touch with their attorneys by phone and by email. The statement was read from their email. So I'm waiting for a proposal probably this week from them, and also a meeting to talk with them to talk through maybe even some of those issues, including maybe separating the leases out.
All right, Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add a few more comments and commentary, Nick, to help you inform, help inform your negotiations. My personal opinion is I like the direction this is headed in Section 1 with regards to the language that a lease on the mansion would be superior to this lease. In the long run, I hope we can find a way that Jens Jensen and our hypothetical player to be named later are working hand in hand. I just want to make sure that we're focusing on that player to be named later, since that's such more significantly impactful on the community. I suspect that the Jens Jensen group might not be super thrilled with this language, so I'll leave that up to you guys to hash out the details. Some feedback on the utilities. I had asked about those earlier, and the answer was that the city would be on the hook to pay the utilities going forward. I interpret that for both the Jens Jensen group and the Mansion group. I'm uncomfortable with that. I would like whoever is in charge of turning off the lights for the next 40 years to be responsible for paying the electric bill. And it can't be that difficult if we need to set up a separate account for the mansion and a separate electrical account for the other half of the property, the other part of the property. I'd like to proceed in that direction. And then the question about a right of first refusal for the fire pit area, I want to make sure that we allow appropriate access to that amenity to everybody in town that's been using it for years and years. I think that's important, and Councilmember Revelle has done some research on that, I believe. And then there's some language issues that I can just feed you offline.
Certainly, the utilities issue, I think staff probably shares the same concerns as you. However, right now, I believe, it's my understanding, the utilities for the mansion and the coach house and greenhouse are tied together. Mm-hmm. So until that is separated, if at all, a lot of infrastructure issues potentially there. The city, and I think right now the draft, it's highlighted because it's something that the city actually has to work out if we wanted to try and separate those two. What was the last one you just said? Sorry.
The fire pit.
The fire pit. So in consulting with Parks and Rec, the fire pit is something that the city has actually permitted in the past, and the city wants to continue to maintain issuing those permits. So we didn't want the tenant, whichever tenant, whether it be the mansion or Jens Jensen, to stop the city from being able to issue that permit, which is why the language that's in there is the right of first refusal. That could also be negotiated as well, but the point is for the city to continue to be able to issue permits for that use of that property.
Without, what right of first refusal means, what would that mean? What would we be giving up?
So it's not the city giving up. It's the city would have the right to say, no, they can't use that because we already have some people scheduled. Or
we would have the right of first
yes.
refusal, not Jens Jensen.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the intent. Maybe, unless I missed something up, that was the intent.
Got it.
Double check.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kelly. Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're still, when do we anticipate that this will come back to this body?
I can't say, but it could be March 13th.
Okay, as soon as March 13th.
It really depends on
negotiations.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And I just want to be clear, both from this body and from your perspective, that if a split lease between the grounds and the coach house is, I don't know if maybe a straw poll or if that, just to give you, because we originally gave you direction to negotiate one lease, and so do you need anything further to potentially negotiate two?
No.
Okay.
And to be quite candid, one of the suggestions early on was a memorandum of understanding for at least the grounds, so that the city could have the services of the garden group to maintain the grounds, but that did not comport with their fundraising efforts. So if what comes out of these negotiations is a lease for the coach house and greenhouse because of the capital improvement and some other agreement for the grounds, that's perfectly fine.
And does a memorandum of understanding give the group, is that something, if we were to say, hey, you no longer are able to use this space, is that something they could take us to court? Do they have, some firm rights with a memorandum of understanding?
It's sort of an agreement. It's pretty much a contract, but there's no money exchanged. So,
is it pretty much a contract, or is it a contract?
It's a exchange of. It is a contract without the consideration of money, essentially.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
All right, thank you for your time. Seeing no other business, are there any questions? I call this meeting adjourned at 5:55. P&D will start at 6 o'clock, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.